Thank you, Rory. I would have sang with you, but I didn't want to ruin it. Amen. Well, if you would put that up on the screen, Mike. I'm going to mirror my screen, it looks like. Do it this way. There we go. Everybody see that on the screen? Okay. Does it need to be bigger? Okay. Let's see if I can get that bigger. Is that good enough? Bigger? Okay. There, we'll do it like that. Okay. I know it's sad to follow this up after that, but we have to get this done. But this is the nominating committee list. And so papers have been passed out. And so basically the process is we're going to read this. This is the first reading. There's no vote today. Next Sabbath, there will be a vote to accept the nominating list. And this, after you see this list and read it over, if you have any objections, please talk to me about it. The nominating committee will revisit if need be, but there will be a vote regardless next Sabbath on these names. Okay, so real quickly. Helpers. Church clerk is Dawn and assistant Melinda, treasurers Gerhard and Kathy, lay advisory Gerhard, interest coordinator Rochelle. Bible study offer coordinator Rochelle, communications secretary Dawn, floral coordinator Dawn. Health Ministries, Lori, June, Olive, and Beverly. There's not a head, and so basically when there's an event, those on that group can decide, who will take which role. Music coordinator is Rory, with assistants Gerhard and Kathy. Religious Liberty, Gerhard. Sabbath School superintendent is Cecil and David together, with Olive as the secretary. Sabbath School Kids Divisions was beginners through primary is being combined with Paulette and Lori together. Junior through youth is Claire and David together. And adult Sabbath School is Cecil, David, Bill, Leon, and Jeff. These are the Sabbath School teachers for the adult class. And Gary will assist if needed. VBS, Lori, Dawn, Beverly, Paulette. I guess I have Dawn on there twice, but then you have, I'll just remove that right now. Okay, Bulletin Secretary, Dawn, with assistant being Melinda. Personal Ministries, Gary and Rochelle together as co-leaders. personal ministry secretary, Don. We do not have a men's ministry group yet, but we will eventually, and so that's why we didn't take it off. Community service pantry is Kathy, and helpers is Dawn and Bill. Women's ministry, Dawn and Melinda as co-leaders. Prayer ministry leader is Rochelle. Greeters, Madeline, Babes, Dale, Ruth, Claire, Lori, Julie, and Bill. Again, there's no head greeter there, but out of that group, we can discuss who that's going to be. AV team, Mike D'Annunzio as the head, Gary as a helper, Claire, Bill, and Jeff as well. Kitchen coordinator is Lori Pyatt. Assistants, June, Dawn, Jeff, and Babes. And that's it. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, talk to me this week. You can call me, email me, or get me in person today. But there will be a vote on this next week. Okay. All right, so Mike, just so you're aware, for the green mic, at some point, I'm going to have audio on the computer that I'm just going to put this up to. And so I'll just, if you just want to leave it unmuted on the board, I'll just unmute it from up here. Thank you. Okay, happy Sabbath. Almost need another song from Rory to get us back in the spiritual mood, don't we? So let's have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, I want to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share your word today. Lord, you're so good to us, so good to me. And I just want to thank you so much for your special blessing of your Sabbath day. To be honest, sometimes it's like I just feel, man, it's the end of the week, but it's such a blessing to be here, such a blessing to worship together with like believers and honoring you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. If you were to see something like this in a photograph, what do you think did that? A torpedo? Jaws? Right? Some Leviathan? Right? A bomb, maybe? Some explosion? What about this one? Yeah, it looks like he hit something, right? Yeah. Iceberg? Yeah. Another ship? Well, what the cause of these were, I'll get to through a story. On December 1978, on board the Marion, a distress call was from the HMS Munchen, and it started sending out this distress call, but it was stopped or left just right in that point there where they just lost contact. This ship was a very modern ship for the time. It was 856 feet long, and it was capable of withstanding 15-foot waves if necessary, and it was a cargo-carrying ship. It was one of the largest manned search rescue missions for sea, and there were 30 planes from several different countries and 100 different ships all looking for the HMS Munchen. Their search area after a week was the size of Mexico. That's how much area they were able to search, to no avail. They did not find anything but a lifeboat, a life jacket, and the lifeboat was empty. And the lifeboat had these two big metal poles that were bent in severely. And so that gave them some clues of what caused the sinking or the disappearance of this massive ship. At this time, waves where basically scientists basically said, regular waves were not the issue of this, but there were multiple ships that were being sunk, and they were considered lost due to mechanical error or some kind of man-made issue, but nothing to do with waves or anything like that. However, once every 10,000 years, scientists believe that it was possible for these giant rogue waves to destroy large vessels. Every what? Once in 10,000 years. This was believed up until 1995. So put that in perspective. There was an oil platform called the Dropner oil platform in 1995 that was equipped with laser sensors and equipment that could measure wave heights and calculate them on a regular basis. Before this, they didn't have, they weren't using technology like that on ships. And so this oil platform was calculating waves over a period of seconds, and it encountered this wave that was 85 feet high compared to the other waves that were roughly averaging 13 feet. This is called a rogue wave, and the waves that scientists said were possible every 10,000 years were only 65 feet, but this was 85 feet high. And because the underneath the platform was damaged severely, they determined that the sensors were not misreading and this was accurate. And so up until 1995, rogue waves were considered extremely rare to the point of 1 in 10,000. All the ships that were lost at sea prior, again, were considered due to man issues, whether they were attacked by somebody else or the failure of the ship crew, but never to waves. After 1995 and this wave was documented for the first time, that's when scientists really started to study and take in consideration that, hey, maybe these waves happen more frequently and at a higher possibility in terms of height. What is a rogue wave? A rogue wave is basically two times the height of the regular waves before and after the wave. So example, here's a graph showing a 32-foot wave, while the other waves are roughly 10 to 15 feet high. And so that would be considered a rogue wave. Also, ocean currents, ocean waves have basically these rolling slopes that ships are used to, but a rogue wave has a very high peak, which a ship cannot travel the tip and usually is capsized due to this wave. The MS Bremen, March 2001, experienced one of these rogue waves, which was 115 feet tall. Basically, that's the size of a skyscraper traveling at 75 miles per hour towards a ship. So that, there you can see that wave there, 115 feet tall. A typical person is 6 feet average. A current ocean wave is 10 feet and has a metric ton of 0.6, and most ships can withstand a 15-foot metric ton force upon it. However, rogue waves can give a ship a metric ton of 100 to 500 metric tons. And so way exceeding the capability of the ships. And you can see these ships, basically the waves just punch a hole right through the ship. So an example of this in terms of like force is if you were to take a potato, a soft potato, and you can just stick your finger right through it. That's a basically metal ship that just got its hull punched through by these waves. So those pictures I showed you were due to rogue waves. That's right. Now, how frequent do these rogue waves happen? After scientists have understood at 1995, it wasn't too long ago, right, that these waves are happening more current, they've started putting out sensors everywhere and determined that a rogue wave occurs in the ocean about every other day. Yep, every other day. And a ship that's in commission for 25 years, it's estimated that every ship that's commissioned for 25 years will experience one rogue wave in their lifetime. That doesn't mean it's going to hit it, but they can see it at some point. Now, rogue waves are waves basically that form out of nothing, right? Or seemingly out of nothing. And scientists still to this day have no explanation of what causes rogue waves. So right now they have an understanding that ocean currents, hot and cold, can mix together, causing these waves. But when you don't have ocean currents, there's still rogue waves forming. So there's still not an understanding yet to this day of how these waves form. And they can be up to 150 feet tall. So if a ship experiences one of these rogue waves, it's basically guaranteed disastrous. On May 26, 2013, a rogue wave hit a tugboat that was pulling a oil tanker. And this shows you the man, or the story I'm going to tell you about, is Harrison Okane, excuse me. And he was a cook on a tugboat off the coast. You can see it here coming up, 20 miles off the coast, the Gulf of Guinea. And it's called the Gascon 4, was the ship, was hit by one of these rogue waves and was capsized, and the ropes snapped and the boat sank to the bottom of the ocean. There were 11 crew members on board, and this happened at 4 a.m. So in that area, there was known for pirating. And so what the protocol was is at nighttime when everybody was sleeping, they would lock their rooms. And so if pirates ever boarded, they would be safe until they could call for help, a distress call. And so as this ship was hit by this rogue wave and capsized, everybody was locked in their room, except one man, Harrison Okane. Harrison, again, was the cook, and he got up to use the bathroom at 4 o'clock in the morning. So if you ever think when you're getting old and you have to get up to use the bathroom, sometimes it could be a lifesaver. But Harrison's got up to use the bathroom at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's in the bathroom, and this rogue wave hits, capsizes the boat, flips it over, and Harrison falls on his head and hits his head on the ceiling, and water starts rushing into the bathroom. And so he's able to pry open the door, and he can see his crew members also trying to get out of their rooms and escape, and they're being like pushed out of the boat and washed away outside the boat. But again, this is when the boat is already sinking. And so Harrison is basically pulled out by the rushing water and travels down the hallway in this river of water that's rushing into the ship, and it throws him into another bathroom that's about 4 square feet. And so the depth that the Jascon 4 sinks is about 100 feet. And here's a lesson on diving. As you're on the surface, right now we're experiencing 1 atmosphere of pressure. That means 14 pounds per square inch is being pushed upon your body. Now, we don't feel it because we're used to it, right? But astronauts in space who don't have that 1 atmosphere of pressure, they have to work out constantly, or else their bone density will decrease, and so they have to do this. However, the opposite effect is true when you're going underwater. Every 33 feet that you go down in water, you increase 1 more atmosphere, meaning that every 30 feet you go down, it's double the weight. So 14 pounds becomes 28 pounds of pressure per square inch. Because the Jascon 4 had sunk to 100 feet, basically there was 4 atmosphere, the atmospheric pressure was 4 times greater. Yeah. And so you can see it there on the bottom. Immediately a rescue crew was sent out to see if there were any survivors. Helicopter and rescue ships. A dive team was dispatched, but they could not find any signs of survivors. And so they basically called off the search. Harrison, however, was very much alive. He was trapped in that bathroom 100 feet on the bottom of the ocean. And so he, after nearly a day of being in that bathroom and his air supply running out, he swam into the engine compartment where he found 4 feet of air left in that engine compartment. Now, you can already see a problem here, several problems, right? For one, the pressure, the water. This was the East Atlantic, which is normally 81.9 degrees, so that's nice water, right? However, Harrison's down 100 feet, and so the water is freezing. And so Harrison is having one issue, and that is hypothermia, right? Which is basically the body is losing heat faster than it can produce it, and the body begins to shut down. Harrison, mind you, it's pitch black. He can't see anything, right? And he can hear all these noises of the ship being basically crushed like a tin can. And he can hear the sharks and eating his companions, right? And so he decides he needs to do something, right? And so he finds a mattress in the pitch black, and he peels off some of the wood interior, and he makes a little raft. And so he gets out of the water and is on this raft, and he begins to pray to God for help to save him. Another team of people, the Luek Tukan, is dispatched not to rescue survivors, but to recover the bodies of the people. Here's the team of people, headed up by Nico van Herden, and they dive down and start trying to explore this wreck. There's so much debris and soot. Visibility is next to nothing because light diminishes the further you get down in the ocean. So visibility extremely low, can't see much. And it basically took them 2 hours just to get through the door. They had to cut through the metal door of the ship to get inside. Once inside, visibility was even worse, and also they were disoriented because everything is upside down. They're swimming around, and they're able to find parts of the bodies and various things, and they're able to recover some of the bodies. And Harrison, in his little room, starts hearing these noises, and he starts pounding on the side to get, because he can hear noises, and so he's assuming maybe there's a rescue team or something. He sees the headlamp of one of the divers swimming past the room that he was in. And so he dives into the water quickly, and he starts swimming after the scuba diver. And I'm going to turn this mic on so you can hear. If it'll go on. If not, I'll use my headset. I'll just use my headset. So this is going to be basically the video of Harrison reaching out to this man because remember, Nico had the camera on his head.
What's that? Okay. All right, you found one, yeah? He's alive. He's alive. Okay, keep him there. Keep him there. All right. All right. Just hold him there, okay? Just keep him there.
Footage of the miraculous moment that a Nigerian man is discovered who'd been trapped under an upturned boat for nearly 3 days.
Just reassure him, pat him on the shoulder. Okay. All right. All right, show him the harness.
So you can see in that video, you could see the hand, his hand reaching out, right? Now remember, the divers were not looking for live bodies. They were looking for dead bodies. And you could imagine the fright that the scuba diver had when this hand starts touching him, right? And so you can hear the person in the video saying, he's alive, he's alive. They're surprised. And there's his little room there. And how long was Harrison in that place? Because remember, they called off the search, the first rescue mission. He was in that room for 60 hours. Yeah, 60 hours he was in that room. Now, this is the fascinating part. And this is where God comes in. So a diver will dive about 130 feet, plus or minus, with a scuba gear, and they'll stay in that depth for around 20 minutes and then resurface. They can't spend much more time than that because then they'll get decompression sickness and there's other things that could happen. So, but Harrison was down in those depths for 60 hours. The average human being breathes about 350 cubic feet of air every 24 hours. So basically, scientists calculated, based on Harrison's room, that he had about a day of air supply, which would be 24 hours. But how was he able to survive for 60? Well, they determined that because of the atmospheric pressure being 4 times greater, air is compressible, And so he actually had 4 times the amount of air. So they determined that he had about, based on that calculation and such, he had about 2.5 days of air, which if you run the calculation, how many hours is that? 60 hours. They determined that if the rescuers were 1 hour later, Harrison would have died. He would have died. Yep. So his air pocket, again, was compressed to a factor of 4. He had been underwater for 60 hours. He was in danger of CO2 poisoning, which in concentration of about 5% is lethal. And so Harrison should have died because of the amount of CO2 in the chamber he was in, because he was breathing out. And why didn't he die because of CO2 poisoning? Well, he didn't know this. He's not a scientist. He's a cook. But when he was splashing the water around, water is a great absorber of CO2. And so by unknowingly splashing the water around, he's actually saved his life from CO2 poisoning, helping to keep the gas below the lethal level of 5%. However, when Harrison was rescued, you saw that video, he did have signs of CO2 poisoning, the onset of it. He was short of breath and delirious when they found him. Well, still underwater, the rescue team above, the command center, was discussing with scientists and professional divers of how to resurface Harrison. Because remember, he'd been down there for 60 hours, and normally they're only down there for 20 minutes. That's right. So there was a problem. This problem was called the bends, or decompression sickness. Basically, what that means is that there's nitrogen mostly in your body and some oxygen, right? And so when you go up too fast, it's basically, imagine it like a pop bottle. You shake it up and you open the cap and you get all that fizz. It's always been there, but basically that's exactly what's happening to your body, is those oxygen and nitrogen gases, if you rise up too quickly, will create bubbles and destroy blood vessels and various tissue in the body. And this is what could happen: joint pain, rashes, paralysis, neurological issues, cardiac arrest, and death. And so what they did with Harrison, after showing him how to use a mask for about 20 minutes, right, getting him used to breathing in the mask, they brought him to the diving bell, and the diving bell was already compressed to that pressure, and they rose him up to the surface through the diving bell, and he finally arrived topside at around 7 p.m. Tuesday, the 28th of May. When he got to the top, he thought he was only down there for 12 hours, and he was down there for 60. And so to his surprise, he was actually down there for over 2 days, and he was immediately transferred to a decompression chamber where he had to stay for another 2.5 days for his body to slowly decompress so those bubbles didn't form in his blood and cause him to die. What did Harrison do after this? Well, he returned to land, right? And he went home in Warri, Nigeria. And he was the only survivor out of the 11 crew members. And so he had survivor's guilt of why me? You know, why do I get to live when my other 10 companions died? He also had PTSD because of the experience and would have constant nightmares at night. However, later on, he was able to overcome this, and this is his recount. And Mike, we're actually going to use the pulpit mic this time for this video sound.
Capsided, and I was there trying to, like, an WC fell on my head and tear my head, and I was there struggling on how I can be able to open the door. When I was right in the water, when I have access to nothing, right down inside the water, I thought of my family, thought of my mom, my brothers, my wife. I have access to none of them, no way to get to them, and I was right in the water, and I know I'm going to die. But the only thing I could put my hope and trust in and my confidence in is God. I don't know it's up to 3 days because I was thinking it's just a day, maybe it's getting to the evening. I was there, keep on praying. When I prayed for some time, I stopped. And I said, God, let that will be done as it is in heaven, because I have tried my best. And I have called on you, and you have never failed me before. And you will never fail me at all in my life. Since I said that, to me, if death comes, let it comes. If death did not come, I know He's going to rescue me. So as I was there like that, I kept calm, and I was bold because I was not afraid anymore, because I know it's life and death. The line is already drawn. If you want to come, let it come.
What's your name? Harrison.
So you can see there, Harrison speaking an interview later on, and he basically saying he was praying to God and saying, Lord, I know you can rescue me if you want, but if you don't, that's okay too. And he was at peace to die or to live, but it was in God's hands now. Now, what do you think Harrison did after this? Do you think he ever went on a ship again? Probably not. You think so? Well, actually, I have another video, a short video to show you. 9 years later, he's joined the same dive team, and now he rescues other people as well. And this is him speaking about it 9 years later.
His strength, keeping me alive, giving me a second chance in life to be a better person, to be a hard-working person, to know every reason why God kept me alive, and for me to know someday I might be a rescuer to someone else in life as well. But God knows the best. I thank God for everything.
That's it for the video, so I don't need the pulpit anymore. Thank you, Mike. So I have the transcript of that because it was kind of hard to hear him. He says, I just thank God for his strength, for keeping me alive and giving me what? Second chance in life. To be a better person, to be a hardworking person, to have a reason why God has kept me alive. And this is the reason. For me to know someday I might be a rescuer to someone else. I thank God for everything. So what does Harrison do? He knows it was a miracle of God that kept him alive, and God gave him a purpose to be a rescuer of other people. God has called us to be rescuers of other people. 1 Peter 2:9 says, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people. That word chosen is in the Greek is electon. Electon. You are elected or selected by a deeply personal choice of God. And genos, generation, is offspring, or in the context of this, you are the family of God. God has selected you by a deep personal choice to be part of his family and to be rescuers. That's where we get the next one, a royal priesthood. Basileus means kingly or royal, and of course, priesthood needs no interpretation in the Greek, but we have a biblical interpretation. What is the job of the priesthood? To show forth Jesus Christ to the people. And the number one, the high priest is none other than Jesus Christ himself, the high priest, who basically grasps heaven and grasps humanity and bridges the gap. And Jesus is calling us his royal priesthood. We are to show forth God to other people, to be that bridge as Jesus has taught us and has rescued us and has given us a second chance. A holy nation, and lastly, in the King James, I bring this up, it says a peculiar people. And I can tell you many sermons I've heard over the years just over this one phrase, peculiar people. And peculiar, the definition of peculiar means strange, odd, or special. And in the context that I've heard it often is it's because as Adventists, we dressed conservatively. As Adventists, we have a vegetarian diet. As Adventists, we're odd to the people around us. We're different. But that's not what it says at all. In the King James Version, it says, his own special people. Now, I will go to the Greek, not basing it off of another translation. The Greek is basically make one's own, completely obtain, i.e. a full possession. Basically, God has purchased us with a price. With his blood, he has saved us from death. And because of that, we are his ownership. And he has called us to be rescuers of other people because he saved us. He's rescued us by the price of his blood. Now, the whole context of this verse, but you are a chosen generation, selected and called by God, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people. And what are all these for? That you may proclaim, yell out, tell about, show forth the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Who once were not a people, but are now the people of God, who had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. God has given you and I a second chance. Are we going to adhere to the call like Harrison and become rescuers of other people? Acts of the Apostles, page 9, says the church, that's us, is God's appointed agency for what? The salvation of men. It's not to argue about the color of the carpet or little things. God has called us to save people. It was organized for service. Its mission is to carry the gospel to the world. From the beginning, it has been God's plan. From the beginning, it's been God's plan that through his church, his people, you and I, shall be reflected to the world his what? Fullness and his sufficiency. The members of the church, those who he has called out of darkness into his marvelous light, are to show forth his glory. The church is the repository of the riches of the grace of Christ, and through the church will eventually be made manifest even to angels, demons, principalities and powers in heavenly places, the final and full display of the love of God. Simply put in layman's terms, the same love, the same sacrifice that Jesus has given for you and I to give us a second chance that we didn't deserve, and there's nothing that we can do to earn it. God is calling us to give other people a second chance, to show forth that same love and compassion and mercy that he has shown us to other people, that they might see one day God's true love in our hearts. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much for rescuing Harrison and giving his message to the world, that we might be rescuers just as you have rescued him and you have rescued us today and each day.